Dan, what's going on, man? That rhyme there as
What
well.
Dan the
Dan
man.
the
Yeah,
man.
what's going on, man? I'm
Oh,
doing great.
good. What's been going on?
Nothing, man. Well, I just got back from coffee shop. I've been enjoying the coffee shop when I can. Like if I don't have anything scheduled in the mornings, I like to get there pretty early, just knock out some writing because I've been writing that book. So that's the main thing that's going on. Everything is kind of revolving
Oh,
around
yeah.
that and trying to get that written and then also staying on top of all the other stuff that I have to do. Gym, business processes, probably a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about in this podcast. But yeah,
Cool, man. So let's talk through the book. What's this book about?
oh man, it's okay. So the book is like my all of my experiences so far and how they all interconnect, right? So mind, body, spirit, business, and how those things are interconnected and how leverage in each of those areas leads to a higher quality of life. And leverage is a good word to use, but experience is one of the better words to use because I've created my own semi non ideological framework to view the world from. And
Yep.
it's really enlightening, like writing this out and understanding how I have come to view the world because I was raised a Latter-day Saint or a Mormon. And throughout that entire time, I had been very rebellious, right? From the start. I didn't want to accept that, like their beliefs as mine. So I questioned everything. And then down the road, I realized that I had just taken on other beliefs that were causing some form of suffering in my life. So that is what is coming out of this book is like me understanding myself more, but from the top down point of view, it is going to be called, hopefully, I don't know if I can call it this because it seems very generic and catchy right now, but the art of focus. And the framework that I'm trying to understand things from and get people to understand things from is seeing the world as a game. And everything you encounter is a game within a game or even a quest. And then from that, I introduce the topic of a virus, which would be conditioning and kind of just taking certain things on, forming an identity, uh, and just reacting to the distractions all around you, all of the external stimuli. And after that, after introducing those, I introduced the three pillars. And those three pillars are focus, energy, and experience. And it's taking an entire book to explain this all, but in a very brief way of putting it, it's where you put your focus or attention. Like focus is the vessel for attention, right? Being able to place it accurately. So you being very conscious of where you're putting your focus is going to result in some form of energy, right? Whether it's internal or external. If you're focused on like inside your head and you're just thinking all the time and you're letting it get out of control and cause that emotional reaction in you and it becomes a negative energy, then that is going to translate to a negative experience that you're having. So those are the three pillars: focus, energy, experience. And it goes the opposite way. So my goal is to get people to focus on the more positive things so they're positively energized and they have positive experiences. And that entire life philosophy as a whole of having a higher cumulative positive experience on this earth is what matters to me. And I tie that into a lot of spiritual concepts, right? That's what I talk about at first before I get into like how you actually do these things in terms of like building a business, getting in the gym, other things. And it's very, I'll have to send you the book. But
Sure.
even after that, like touching back on focusing on the negative, it's it's also when you catch yourself focusing on the negative, or if you are intentional about focusing on the negative, you can transmute that energy into something positive, right? So you can have a higher quality of life. I guess that's a better way of putting like positive experience on this earth is higher quality of life, extended higher quality of life, because there's different times where you go down. There's highs and lows, inevitable highs and lows. So it's like when those lows occur, you can harness that energy. You can dive into it non-reactionary and come out of it in a positive way. And I think that's a lot that has a lot to do and is very much in common with what we talked about when you were on my podcast, is how we kind of hit a dark point. We hit that dark point, and that is what made us bounce out. And a lot of people allow that to consume them, and they stay in that rut or wherever you want to call it for a specific amount of time when that doesn't have to happen. And so I'm trying to give people practical tools to get out of that in the second part of the book that I haven't written yet. So the first part of the book is like somewhat wishy-washy and spiritual, but it's all explained. So there's a lot.
That's epic, man. That sounds so awesome. Sounds to me like it's a perspective shifting kind of book, and you're trying to move people from the paradigm of negative experiences through kind of a framework that then gets them to have better experiences throughout life, from what you're telling me, which, like you say, I think so many people, and you guys listen to this might get this, is it's easy to get consumed by a thing and that bring you down, and then that like be the story or the narrative that you play to yourself, right? You get a bad sacking at a job, right? You lose your job for some whatever reason. Potentially it's not your fault, and you maybe let that be the story of your life, or the love of your life breaks up with you, and you think you're never going to find a girl like that again, right? Or you get super fat, and you never think that you're going to get into good shape and have a good body and feel confident. I think all of these things can press us down, which makes this book very, very exciting, because I shared this video on my Instagram recently about kind of mental health. And I think the biggest thing that people need is a psychological framework in which they view the world and can direct their behaviors. Because growing up, I don't think we have that. And, as an adult, I've realized that many people that I know don't have this kind of framework yet. It's a rare thing. So the fact that you're teaching this to people hopefully will be life-changing, man. I really think it can be.
I'm hoping so, man. My goal with it, like I have those vanity metrics of, I want it to be a bestseller. I want it in the hands of millions of people. But the reality is I want to give what other people have given to me, what my teachers have given to me, in terms of like the people that I watch on social media, especially, or on YouTube when I was younger, and how that got me into fitness, and it really changed the direction of my life. And I attribute that to them a lot. And then even when I was diving into the spiritual journey, Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now, I reference that book so much because of like, it was just the right message at the right time. Some people read that book and they don't get much out of it, and all I have to tell them is come back to it in a year, right? And that message may be completely different to you. I started reading it again last week, and I found myself, it was an older book. It was the one that I had from like 7-8 years ago when I first read it. And now I'm reading it now, and I highlighted a lot of stuff. And I just wanted to highlight everything that wasn't highlighted. It was really weird how much I missed there. And it completely shifted my perspective again on like from the last time I went through it. And so that's what I want to create. I want to create something that the first time around, it shifts a lot of people's perspective, and it truly changes the direction of their life. And then even the second time around, it does that again. It does it again, and it helps them understand even deeper the concepts that I am trying to put across. So that's the main goal with it. And the way to do that for me is to just market it as hard as I fucking can and get it to be a bestseller.
I love that, man. That's amazing. And I think with great books as well, they're always ones that you want to reread again. And I always have the motto, right? You shouldn't try and read 100 books. You should read one book 100 times, right? I don't know who,
Yes.
Some guru has definitely quoted that somewhere, right? It's probably Naval or something. But yeah. Like it is about the retention of information, not the breadth of information. And I feel that going deep on especially concepts that are important to you is very, very important, and getting that understanding. What do you do then, Dan? For the audience that don't know, I mean, what's kind of your role? I mean, you're not an author quite yet. You will be when this comes out. But yeah, kind of what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so it's been a journey of a lot of what I've talking about and what I'm putting in the book in terms of like experience. So before all of this, the first thing that got me into online business was web design. in a sense. Uh, I had tried so many different things before that. I tried drop shipping, digital art, e-commerce brands, two of them to be exact, and even more. Just I tried and failed at so many different things, the typical entrepreneurial story, but that helped me stack skills and make web design finally successful, because I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't studied the marketing or the sales or even the digital art to help brand myself and all these other little pieces that come together to form that successful thing. So even before web design, I was learning to code because I didn't really see my life going anywhere. Really, I was in the last year of college. I wanted to avoid a 9 to 5 job as much as possible. That's why I tried and failed at all these things. I started learning to code because I heard that I could get a job without a degree. So it's kind of like a backup plan, but also I could start freelancing with code and software. And along that way, I had tried freelancing before. It didn't really work out. I know exactly why it didn't work out. Is just because I wasn't consistent with the lever moving tasks, and I ended up losing a lot of money that I borrowed from my dad, and so that put me into a pretty dark place because one, it wasn't my money, and it was my dad's money, and I had failed at all these different things, and there was so much that just built up to this one point of me going into this. It wasn't very long, but some state of depression or like super negative emotions. And I ended up calling my dad one day to break the news to him because I had put it off, telling him that I lost all his money and wasn't able to make it back. And he was completely fine with it. And that wasn't, I didn't expect that at all. So one, that helped. And two, he said, no, you don't need to worry about that. What you need to worry about right now is that you have all of these marketable skills or some form of skills, and you can get a decent paying job right now. And you need to get out of your head the whole I'm trying to avoid a 9 to 5 for life thing. And so that's what I did. I started applying to web dev jobs. I ended up getting one at a web design agency as a web designer, but with coding. And during that time, I'm like, okay, I'm doing something related to web design. I might as well leverage this and try to freelance with it as well. And so I'd kind of studied and I had some breakthroughs while I was working for that agency because the agency and freelancing is very similar. And I understood, okay, they have a sales department. They have a specific way of marketing these things. They have a specific way of getting in front of their niche. And the niche was retailers. So, uh, like selling appliances and furniture and mattresses and stuff like that, very niche down. And I would get my work done as quick as possible on the job, and I would even put things off until the last day because I had systemized things so much and made templates for specific projects so I could knock out websites really quick. And I just spent my time reaching out to people for web design services and like studying even more courses to learn sales, marketing, and like the whole thing of niching down and writing good cold emails and how to DM people and all of that stuff. And eventually I made the web design thing work enough to leave that job and do that full time. And that went on for a bit. It was fun, but eventually I decided like there has to be something more, right? I feel like a lot of freelancers can't, especially freelancers as opposed to agencies, can get stuck in the trap of just like reach out, get a client, reach out, get a client, and you're stuck at this like certain mark, right? Unless you start working with bigger clients or just finding out a way to scale or even hiring people, you're stuck. There's a limit to your income, which is another thing. That's why a 9 to 5 was so unappealing to me, is because I knew there was a cap. I couldn't increase past a certain point. And so with freelancing, I realized that fairly quick. And so it's like, okay, what next? And I was on Twitter around this time. I was following certain people that were putting out like self-improvement advice because that's really what I love talking about. That's a huge part of my journey in becoming a web designer, in doing the business stuff, is self-improvement as a whole. And I got on Twitter. I started emulating people and like how they post because I realized I have a lot of this knowledge. I've soaked in a lot of it and I've experienced a lot of it, and I feel like I've improved myself to a certain extent to be able to start posting about the self improvement stuff. And I also saw people. I bought like a Twitter course. It was Jose Rosado's Twitter Money Mastery, and he talked about like ebooks in there, and I saw him promoting his. And I had bought in courses in the past, so I'm like, I've done this web design thing. I should probably, like, the next logical step to increase my income would be to create a course on how I run this business model. And so I did that, grew on Twitter, started selling that. It did pretty good at the start, but then it's like you just get stuck in the kind of addictive trap of what's next. Like, how do I improve that, increase that income more? So it's like, okay, I can create web designers in order to buy that other course. So then I created another video course on how I create websites without coding, right? And then I sold that. And then after that, after I got to a specific amount of Twitter followers, I created a Twitter course, as controversial as that can be for some people on Twitter. I created one of those that did pretty well. And like my philosophy started to come together. It's like what you do is you improve yourself and you acquire skills and you experience certain things, and through that experience you can help others that are below you, not below you but behind you, like one step
Sure.
behind you. And then you teach them and you bring them up with you, and you, as you're improving yourself through doing that, right, that's the next step to improving yourself, is kind of transcending that need for acquiring all this stuff and instead teaching it. Then things started to come together. And eventually I did start landing some web design clients through Twitter, and I kind of weaned off of the cold outreach and the DMs. And that's why I'm such a huge proponent of building a personal brand, is that you can gradually transition into clients coming to you instead of you going to them. And then after that, that naturally, well, throughout this entire time, I had been refining my offer, and it turned more into like a funnel building offer, right? For creators, coaches, freelancers, and doing some emails on the back end. And after that, all of my stuff started to come together. And then it naturally progressed more into a consulting thing where I'm consulting people and helping people with their marketing and their offers. And that did really well for a bit and allowed me to transition out of done for you work, which has been my goal for a long time, because it's just less time investment, right? It's the whole saying of like, use your time to make money, use your money to buy time. And then throughout that, you kind of, you have the experience to create better offers that allow you not to put as much time into it, but still have an incredible impact. You productize it to an extent. And so now I'm doing some form of rendition of that. It's more so quarterly cohorts now. And then my goal as a whole is to transition out of all of that and take on like a few clients, like high level clients where I can help them from a very high level, but everything else is productized, right? That's my purpose behind the podcast, behind creating the planner, behind writing the book, is just using that as fuel to keep sales high with that and expand. Like, because you can go about the low followers but super niche down business model for as long as you want, but that's not what I want. That's the complete opposite of what I want. I want a huge distribution network, and then productized offers that can be spread wide. And so that has what has led into this all-encompassing master the modern world type deal, where it's like mind, body, spirit, and everything revolving around that, and helping people improve all areas of their life, with business being one of the main vessels, because you do need money in order to get autonomy, in order to pursue your self-development fully and have the time and be able to create your own schedule to do that. So that's kind of the natural evolution of everything I've done and everything I do now.
Man, that's very well articulated and a good story there of how you've gone through very many different stages of kind of business, right? Going through the kind of outreach whilst doing the web design job, right? And kind of hustling through that, then moving through to, you know, building your own websites, but you know, do it for you, which obviously takes up a lot of your time. To then obviously moving into consulting, which you get paid a bit more, but you know, it still takes up a lot of your time. There's a cap on that. To then actually finally transition to productizing that, and then being able to use your time to then build out elsewhere. Which I think as a business owner, and you know, as you start out and as I started out, everything was done by myself. Everything was focused on myself. I did the sales, I did the marketing, I did the client delivery, right? I do all my graphics, I did every single little part of the business. And especially when you're, you know, starting out, you're not learning much, earning much, sorry. You have to do that, unfortunately. But the more that you can kind of build a system that is scalable as soon as possible, that will be really great. Whether that is, you know, if you've got a big audience trying to have a low ticket offer that doesn't take up too much of your time, or, you know, if you don't have a big audience, being very niche in what you do, getting yourself in front of people through direct messages, showing people that you're an authority and presenting your offer and showing them that you can help them with a high ticket price is a great way to do things. So depending on kind of the level that you're at, kind of the lifestyle that you want, it really does depend on kind of where you want to go, but you need to find a way to minimize the amount of time it takes you to earn the money that you want. And that's one of the biggest things I've learned about business is I'm at the point now where I'm bringing on team members, another coach, people that are going to do a lot of the work for me, because for the last 5 years, I've been doing most of it myself, which I should have cut this down a lot earlier, right? But as entrepreneurs, we learn that. And I think if you listen to this, the quicker that you can get to that stage, it's going to be much easier for you. And you're then going to be able to learn things like the nuances of marketing, right? You're going to be able to refine your offer. You're going to be able to go to networking events. You're going to be able to do things like podcasts and get your face out there. And as a personal brand, that's massive because you need to be the face of your business. You can't always be working in your business, right? You've got to be working on it, not in it. And I think that's a really important point.
Yeah. One thing that I will mention is I'm like grateful for this, but I'm a stubborn dude, man. Like I like to do the opposite of what everyone says, no matter what it is. And I think that's helped me. I think it's helped me a lot because everyone would tell me, okay, agency is the next step. Hire people to do this whole web design thing for you, and then you focus on sales and outreach, and eventually you can outsource that. And I didn't like hearing that. It's like it seemed like a huge and even more time sucking thing to me. I'm sure that's not the case at all, but that's just what it seemed to me at the time. And so I've become a big proponent of the one man business type thing, but I'm not a one man business right now. But I like the idea of it. So I kept pursuing that, and it made me, it put me into this like, it made me think creatively about what I'm offering and how I can spend less time but still deliver the same value. And in terms of the consulting, that's when I somewhat transitioned into hybrid consulting offers, right? And I decreased my time on calls, but calls were still available. And especially with the cohort thing that I have going quarterly, it's like we have a big Discord group, and that's where a lot of the questions are answered. And then we have one weekly call for everyone inside there that is in the program, kind of like a group coaching thing, but a little bit different. And that's where like deeper questions are answered, and then we have those recorded so we can store them somewhere else, and that just increases the value even more as the time goes on, and it doesn't take too much time out of my day. So it's like I've had to think creatively about that because I could do that by myself. I have Joey on now, and I have like an editor for videos, a very small team. But like if I wanted to do that all myself, I probably could, and I would rake it in with so much less work than I did when I was originally doing like done for you client work. So that's one thing that I think isn't talked about very much. Maybe I need to talk about that more and like incorporate that into my brand, because I do think it's really powerful, and I do think there is a lot of opportunity there, because in all of this stuff, I have studied offer creation a lot, and I've realized like that you are in full control over the delivery, right? And as long as you deliver on the value that you say you are, then you can structure it however you want, right? So whether it be like if you don't want to do weekly consulting calls, you can do unlimited consulting calls and just remind them, hey, when like you have like if you have any questions that need deeper answers, you can always schedule a call here. But a lot of the time, a call isn't required. And that's kind of what I realized, especially in what I was doing. And so a lot of the questions went into the Discord, and a lot more people were just focused on taking action on the curriculum that I had given them. And it resulted in better results. So that's one thing that I think can be planted in a lot of people's minds right now is just once you gain enough experience and you've done these things for long enough, you can start to think outside the box in how you are actually delivering. And since like you're in full control of that, so you can make it however you want as long as the certain things that they are paying for there is worth it and is delivering results. And if it's not delivering results, then you have to come back and be like, okay, how can we create this in a way that gets these people results? And how, like, then it's time, okay, we need to start hopping on calls and we need to start getting this together and see what's going on and just go from there. It's a constant it's constant iteration according to the feedback you're getting both from your clients and from what you're seeing and what you are okay with seeing in terms of results.
That's a very good point. And I think that you're right, especially with a coaching offer or a coaching program, whatever realm that's in, fitness and business, people will pick up information and learn at different rates. And we'll also need different levels of engagement, right? So take one guy is going to need the weekly calls every single week up until a point, whereas another guy is really going to let it click. He's going to understand it, right? And by week 2, he's kind of like, he's done everything, right? And it's like, I don't need the weekly calls, man. Just let me go. So yeah. I think you're right, especially with this kind of industry that we're in, people are going to learn at different rates. I do think that community is a big thing as well. The way that people can benefit from other people's answers. And that's one of the big changes that I've made on my program is building out a channel for everybody to communicate with, right? Because a lot of the questions will take away a lot of your time, which is a win for you, because other people are benefiting from the answers. And sometimes people won't answer the questions that other people are thinking of, but will benefit from the answer, right? So here you've actually got a good thing with communities that can really work, as well as the camaraderie, the accountability, all of that kind of stuff that comes with behavioral change, right? That's very important, which I think is super cool. I wanted to move on a bit more now into the other side of what you really enjoy. And I know that you're a big fitness fan and, you know, keep yourself fit. So talk me through kind of the benefits, I guess, that you found. And actually, you know, firstly, why you kind of started out and where that journey started for you getting fit.
Yeah, I love fitness. The one thing I want to preface here is that I'm big overall, like throughout everything. I'm very big on reading up on things, but once you understand the fundamentals, I really think it's experience based after that. And we can touch on that deeper after. But the way that I got into fitness was in 6th grade, I believe, or 7th grade. I think it was 7th grade, where my friend Jerry was watching these YouTube videos and he's like, we need to hit the gym. And one of our math teachers was the after school weights dude. And so we talked to him. He encouraged us every day, like, hey, you need to come here and you need to hit the gym. He was very blunt. He was one of those teachers that was like, no bullshit. Like, you come in and you do this every single day or whenever we have weights class. And it's like, okay, we'll come. And so went in there. I remember throwing or trying to bench the 45-pound bar, and it was the most difficult thing in the world. And did a few reps, did the rest of the workout, went home, woke up the next morning just feeling like absolute shit, like completely tired. My chest was ripped apart, and I didn't want to go back at all. But I waited, or I kept going. I did the other workouts. Same thing happened. I just felt like so fucking sore and kept going back. And then once I felt recovered, I started doing bench again. And I was like, I'm going to ego lift here and I'm going to throw on the 5-pound plates. And I lifted it and I'm like, oh, that was actually a lot easier than last time. And that was only within a week. So I started noticing the progress immediately. And both Jerry and I kind of became obsessed at that point. And we were just watching YouTube videos all the time. My dad and mom were into P90X at the time, and so they had the like adjustable dumbbells, and I would take those into my room and I'd do like wrist curls on the side of my bed because I wanted to see veins in my arms. Like I would see other dudes at school with veins in their arms as they walked. I'm like, God, that's so badass. And so I would go and just do wrist curls and then like floor presses and other things. And once we turned 18, we were allowed to go to like our community gym, which was sick, by the way. No, it was 16. It was 16. We got to go to our community gym. And so we would go there every single day. We did the typical bro split, like chest, back, arms, legs, and then like accessory or something like that. And we followed a like the reverse linear periodization. Like we were deep into this research, like on YouTube and
Sure.
everything else, and just understanding everything, understanding nutrition. This was the time where IIFYM and flexible dieting were a big thing. So it's like, oh, you can eat whatever you want as long as you hit your macros. So we were shoving down Pop Tarts, and like I'm a tall dude and I weighed a lot at the time. And so I was eating like 3,500 calories of just Pop Tarts, protein powder, frozen burritos, a ton of milk, and all this other stuff. And I gained weight really quick and I got extremely strong. So senior year of high school, Jerry and I were like some of the strongest dudes there. And like even stronger than I am now because I'm a lot leaner. I did pack on a good amount of weight. And throughout that time, the one person or a few people like that I think and always pay homage to are Matt Ogus, Chris Lovato, Chris Jones, that whole OG fitness space that was
OGs.
going on.
Yeah.
Dude, I would get so pumped every single time I watched their videos, and like especially Matt going into like meal prep. They were so relatable. That's another thing I'm trying to bring into my brand is the whole relatability and like how close they are to their audience and how much they just didn't give a fuck. Like they were my mentors to an extent, and that's what like fueled me to go through that the entire time. And eventually like then it just became habit, and I started going through like some form of cutting and bulking phases. And this is what I mean by the whole experience thing is like I understood a lot of what I had to do along the way. And the whole like hitting your protein, like IIFYM taught me the fundamentals of nutrition, kind of, and then just lifting and understanding different lifting regimens and progressive overload and all of that good stuff, and then trying that over time and trying the bulking and cutting. And now my perspective has changed a good amount on it. I don't really care about getting as big as I want it to be. I want it to be like a competitive bodybuilder, like possibly go to Olympia if I ever decided to do roids. But now it's more so like I want mental clarity. I want a very lean and good looking physique, and I want to enjoy my workouts, and I want my nutrition to reflect all of that. Right? So I've tried the low carb, I've tried the keto, I've fucking tried vegan. I've tried uh high carb, of course, and other things. And I've slowly gotten to know my body better over that time. And so now I'm kind of like mid carb, mid fat, high protein, mostly animal product based, good amount of veggies, berries. I just got on the raw liver gang because of all the hype that's around that and how it's extremely nutrient dense. And over time, just slowly iterating and refining what I do in the gym and what I eat. And so now it's like I'm much higher energy. My acne is almost gone. I've had a few breakouts lately, but working on that. But it's really improved my quality of life, fitness as a whole. That's been like a driving force and a part of my life almost every day since that inception in when it first started in the weight room in 7th grade. So that's my fitness story.
Wow, man, that's cool. And the funny thing is, I think we're about the same age as well, aren't we? And we probably went through the same transitions of what we watched who we watched. So I remember Ogus, Chris Lovato, they were the
Probably, yeah.
OGs that I would watch, right? Every time. And, I was doing the eating Pop Tarts, if it fits your macros kind of stuff for so long, right? I'd be so happy when I could put a frozen pizza into the oven, 800 calories, and be like, I budgeted for
Yeah.
that. And I'd be so fucking happy with myself that I could do that, because you never grew up being able to learn this stuff, right? But the transition that I've kind of gone into now is, I think you get to a point where you've kind of outgrown that stuff, but you realize it's good to have a good physique. It's good to eat all of this shit, but it doesn't actually make you perform very well from a cognitive place, right? Or from an energy level standpoint or a clarity standpoint, right? And the biggest thing that affects our kind of stress and, focus and mood is our nutrition, because when we're under lots of stress, we need these micronutrients, these vitamins, these minerals that are going to help our brain do the things that we want to do, so we can be more creative, have more output, have more impact, make more money, right? All of these things are needed. So there's levels to this kind of nutrition game, and definitely the fitness game as well, that you'll learn as you go through things. And it's a big thing that I kind of work on with my clients now, is eating for performance, not just to look good. And I guess that ties in with kind of entrepreneurship, right? Because again, you want to be able to eat for the function that you want to achieve. And that is for the things that I spoke about. So you're going to change the way in which you do things based on kind of the level of, or the area of life in which you're in, right? Because at some point you just wanted to be jacked and get girls, and that's great, right? But then that served you for a while, and you change that. And with that, other parts of yourself have to change too.
Yeah, dude. I'm the exact same way, and I've made this realization recently after like bringing Joey on to the team, is because down performance coaches have become there. It's a relatively new industry in terms of like actual coaching, right? And and kind of re-angling from the really is of how performance, like most of your business problems are performance problems, right? It's just like, especially as a one-man business, which I am very big on, it's completely dependent on your performance. It's completely dependent on your mental clarity and being able to manage certain emotions and having routines in place to energize you in the morning and calm you down at night, and lifting to reduce stress and just have something there, and structuring your nutrition, and all of it plays a role in, I guess you could say, new age business. and
Yeah.
and even for executives too, it's huge for executives that need like proper function throughout their day. And it's kind of sad, man, because what it seems like is that society or the modern world is out to get us in a specific sense, right? You walk into the grocery store and it's like, okay, first option is crap. I feel like eating crap right now because I've eaten crap for my entire life, so I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to go into the packaged area of the grocery store, all the inside stuff, rather than circle the outside and then work your way in. It's a We could talk about that, but everything, man, is like everything you could expose yourself to right now, like just extremely easily, whether it be your phone, social media, TV, all of the instant gratification stuff, it's reducing our performance, right? And so that's why I think it's so important to improve that area of your life, and especially with fitness, is because you have to manage that. You have to manage that and reverse the damage that it's causing on you, especially if you're unaware of it, because that's all it is. It's become so normalized to us to just go through this routine and scroll social media and watch TV and eat junk food that we don't even realize how much of an impact it's having on our energy. Like, I'm sure you've experienced this at one point, especially when we started to transition out of the IIFYM ideology, is that you feel so much better. Like, you feel so much better, and it's a gradual process. It's like a week or two, and you start kind of noticing that boost in energy. And then when you have that cheat meal or something that's just bad, it's bad, but it's it's there, it can be moderated, but you have it and you just feel like shit. You feel terrible. And you're like, so this is what I felt that entire time. It just became so normalized to me that I completely forgot about it. So performance, absolute key, man. It is absolutely a key and a huge, I think it should be close to number one priority in a lot of people's lives.
Absolutely, man. And you're right. The environment that we're in, it's not conducive to optimal health from, the way that the supermarket's laid out, right? Everything that you need is around the edges, like you said, right? All the fresh produce, the fresh meat, right? The fruit, that's the stuff you should be eating, okay? All of these kind of things that have come from animals, organic sources, healthy shit, right? And then in the middle, you've got all of these other horrible things, right? Cereals, high fructose corn syrup, right? All of this stuff that wreaks havoc on your health, vegetable oils. And some of this stuff, like people are completely oblivious to of what it does to your health, right? Like vegetable oil is the big one. So many people don't know about vegetable oil, and I have to tell them. My mum was cooking with it the other day, and I picked it up and I threw it in the bin. I was like, Mum, you're not having that. I'm sorry, right? Throwing out my mum's vegetable oil because we care about her, right? Like, it's one of these
Yep.
things that it's very difficult to understand. And even as me as a coach, this only came to me within the last couple of years, learning about all of this stuff. It's very eye-opening. So I think as well, not just the foods that we consume, but the things that we do for our own psychology and our emotions is important. So like the digital things that we consume, whether that's news, the people that we're in relationships with, right? And all this kind of stuff. And I'm a big proponent of physical, mental, emotional well-being, right? Which is health. I think people tend to focus on just getting a good body, just getting a six-pack, right? But if other parts of your life are pretty shit, emotions, relationships, you're never really going to be happy. So from your point of view, and I know you're big on this, what do you do to kind of help with having a good mental state, having good emotions, and the things that are kind of not tied to the kind of fitness things, right? The training, the nutrition things.
Mm. So I've started to think of how everyone views the world from their specific lens, right? The things they've been exposed to and the conditioning, or as some people call it, the programming that people have taken on, and whatever that contains, right? Their biases, their beliefs, their ideologies, the things they identify with. And what happens there is when you identify with these specific things, you are much more easily triggered. You're like an on and off button. You react to things, right? If you this is a we'll start with a menial example. So a sports team, right? And I do not care if you watch sports. I do not care if you take the time and relax and watch sports. It can be a good thing. But if
Yeah.
you're identifying with a specific sports team and you will die for that team, no matter what, it's a part of you. I am a Raiders fan, for example, right? And someone shit talks the Raiders and you immediately get pissed. You have that reaction because it's a part of your identity, right? And then that bugs you. That creates some form of snowball throughout the day and you just have a bad day. And even like worse cases, the whole anxiety thing, or and again, I'm not here to argue whether or not you have like a chemical imbalance with anxiety and other things, but it is worth trying, especially after you've made certain lifestyle choices in terms of fitness and health, to think about how you are identifying with anxiety, right? I like to think of it, and I've heard other people say this as well, is instead of I am anxious, so you are literally calling yourself anxious. That is a part of you. Anxiety is there, right? Because if you're identified, like if anxiety is a part of you, there's no possibility of escaping it. It's going to be a part of you forever unless there is that possibility of overcoming it or at least finding a better way to manage it, right? So the first step there is either studying perception and how people interpret things and understanding the concept of conditioning and how a lot of things get stored in your subconscious and becoming aware of that, right? Another thing I'm big on and something I've recently became aware of that I kind of naturally did is observing how other people do it, not to judge them, not to label them, right? I like you're not that's just the complete opposite of what we're trying to accomplish here. You're observing other people to see what their how their actions have impacted their life. And now I lived, a lot of us, a lot of us have lived with our parents for a good period of our life. And I would argue that many of them make unhealthy choices. And you can see how that impacts them. And you can see how that impacts their mood and how they interact with the world and how they react to certain things that you kind of think like, what? Like, why is my mom embarrassing me right now when she's reacting to that? And so you become aware of their actions and the impact it has. And you can start to become aware of those reactions in yourself, right? If you allow yourself to. And it's the same with anxiety stuff. It's like the reason I'm so big on like at least having people be open-minded to trying this stuff first, whether it be the lifestyle changes or the perspective change and understanding these things and becoming aware of that, is because it can help very much. And so that's one part of it, is just understanding the mind, understanding human behavior, human psychology, and seeing that reflection in yourself and how you are reacting instead of responding to certain things. And that is all a byproduct of the mind, right? We could dive super deep into this because this is part of the book that I'm writing about right now, is how it's, think of it like this. All negative emotions you experience are quite literally defined as disturbances, right? The word emotion originates from the French translation emotion or something. I don't know how to say it, but it's emotion, and it's defined there as a physical disturbance, right? And these emotions are a byproduct of thoughts, right? And this goes back to the whole three pillars I was talking about with the book. Is like, if you energize those thoughts through your focus, they turn into emotions, whether it be positive or negative, right? And that turns into experience, that turns into how you feel. So if you learn to manage your thoughts, this problem becomes less and less of a thing. And so this helps you understand the importance of, say, mindfulness. This helps you understand the importance of meditation and practicing managing and becoming non-reactionary to those thoughts that you're having, so they don't immediately turn into a negative emotion and therefore negative feeling, and therefore a negative day, negative week, negative month, et cetera, et cetera. So with these spiritual or even just beneficial practices of widening the gaps, widening your gaps of consciousness, so having less thoughts or being non-reactionary to them, or just not identifying with them, and lowering the gaps of unconsciousness, the gaps of just having some external stimuli, whether it be the past, present, or future. Put a thought into your head, a thought from the past pops into your head, a thought from the future pops into your head. You see something and it puts a thought in your head, and then you react negatively to that, and it turns into a negative emotion, negative feeling. So lowering the gaps of that, because you are practicing how you, again, react. I'm saying react so many times, but how you react to those things. So that's aside from fitness, and I do believe fitness and weightlifting specifically plays, actually, yeah, fitness as a whole plays a huge role in that, because at the gym, when you're, I think Dan Go said this, but when you're under 400 pounds on the squat, you're not stressing about anything. I mean, you're stressing about the weight on your back, but that's in the present. You're not thinking about anything. You're thinking about getting that fucking weight off your shoulders and finishing the set, right? So that's why I believe weightlifting specifically is such a great practice, because not only does it have the like muscle building and resistance training benefits that comes along with it, but you're training the mind as well. If you're doing it correctly and you're pushing very hard, it's meditative. It's a meditative practice in a sense, and you're that's why so many people get addicted to the gym, is because they get out of their head for so long. That's why it's such a like stress relieving act for them. And that's what like men resort to when they're in a bad mood, is like, okay, yeah, I got to go fucking hit the gym and I'll feel better. And in my opinion, everything I just said is exactly why that is a phenomenon.
I love that, man. I love that. That's such good insight. And I think when you talked about identity there and not identifying with your anxiety, right, or your depression is so important. It's not I am depressed, it's I am experiencing depressing feelings, or there is a feeling of
Yes.
depression, right? You are not attached to this, the same as you're not attached to certain bad habits that you have or bad things that you do, right? It is a fact that these things are temporary and passing and they're fleeting and you can get rid of them. And again, it's not part of your makeup or the framework or, you know, the genetics of your body. You know, all of these things can be tackled. I think a really important thing that especially I focus on, and I think that helps me psychologically, is authenticity and not feeling shame and actually self-accepting of who you are, right? So for me, and I know that a lot of girls love star signs, right? But if you read the Scorpio kind of star sign, right, I am the exact, or again, not identifying with it, but a lot of my behavior is like a Scorpio person, right? So I can see that sometimes I am very intense, right, in what I do, super, super intense. And I can also be really ruthless and honest with who I am. Now, I used to feel a bit of guilt for this, right? I used to feel guilty that I was so intense and that other people could see this, right? And they kind of judge me on that. But I think sometimes it's okay to own the fact that you're intense because there's benefits to doing that. The key with these kind of behaviors is to have self-awareness to the fact that maybe it's not right to be intense in these certain areas, right? So within the relationship with somebody, let's try and work on not being so intense, right? And detaching yourself from that, right? But at other times, you should really own that part of you and be authentic about it, especially if it's kind of a default thing, because, you know, shame and guilt is a big reason as to why people feel anxious. They feel shame for the fact that they're into different things, they're a bit weird and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, as long as you're not hurting anybody, and it's kind of not destructive, you should kind of own who you are, right? And the likes, the dislikes, and that kind of thing. I think that's a really important part of your psychology to feel good every day about who you are.
Agreed, man. And I feel like, as I talked about perception earlier, and like when you start to not or detach and not identify these things and treat the external as what it is, it's separate from you. It is not you. You open up room to what a lot of people on like self-improvement Twitter, or overall, I don't see it in too many places, but like creating your own reality, right? Once you understand what you are not, then you start to understand what you are, right? Because you are not all of these separate things, but you are. It's a difficult concept that I'm still toying with in my head, like the spiritual side of what you are. But in terms of like embodying fully what you believe and still detaching from other things and not labeling or judging, but embodying what you fully believe right now according to your specific experience level, that is going to do more good for you than just like tiptoeing around it, right? If you embody that fully, one, you are going to get respect from a lot of people. You are going to attract a lot of people that are similar to you. And you're going to notice flaws in your own personality if you are aware, as we talked about earlier, because if you go to the max and you embody this stuff and you realize, okay, maybe, yeah, like I've gotten enough feedback to understand that I am being a dick and I need to work on that. Or I have dove in fully into it enough to know that like this belief of mine could be wrong, right? It's the whole act of critical thinking and like being slow to believe and holding everything in the realm of possibility, but at the same time, not letting that critical thought impact how you present yourself and who you fully are right now, the things you embody and truly believe until proven otherwise. And you really have to be open-minded about that, because you can't be stuck in that cycle forever if something is wrong there, or it does spark some form of bad feeling in you after hearing something. You have to pay attention to that and work to improve it. It's improvement as a whole. But you're doing yourself a disservice if you are not being fully authentic with who you believe you are right now. But very big emphasis on the open-mindedness and holding everything in the realm of possibility, because that can easily turn you into a zealot, just like a reactionary zealot to everything. Like if you, I don't know how to put it. Like this can even be brought back to fitness, right? If you love keto and that's what you do and you like to talk about that and you want to promote it to other people, that's great. But then if something is thrown at you that's actually good counter advice to what you're doing, and you immediately write it off just because you're keto and that's a part of your identity, then that's where the problem sparks, because then you're stuck in this whole thing. And anyone that talks shit about keto, you're gonna have a negative reaction to, and it's weird there, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I like the idea of owning who you are and making the decisions kind of as strongly as possible with the experience and the knowledge that you have now, but always being open to changing that if new information arrives, right? So you should kind of own this. I'm this person for the minute. I think this is the right path based on everything that I know, but I'm open to changing if I see wrong, right? And I feel that this way you're going to make a lot of mistakes, because I've been like this with this kind of brute force mindset. But then you kind of realize, oh shit, I was a fucking dick there, or that's actually not serving me, or this is wrong. And you're like, okay, cool, let me step out. Boom, let me go to the next thing. And that's the whole point. And as cheesy as it sounds, like life is the journey. Like, that is the thing that is exciting, right? You learn and go through all these different experiences, do lots of different shit, see what does and doesn't serve you. And you come out of it and you have all of these great kind of stories, but also an understanding of what serves you, right? And what you're about, the lifestyle you want to live, the people you want to be around, your strengths, your weaknesses, the places you don't want to go, the places you do want to go, all of this kind of stuff, right? But like you said, it only comes from taking that action fully at the time.
Completely agree, dude. Because like I used to be that person, like because there's a fine balance there. And that's the other fun thing about it, is you're constantly in this state of improvement. I don't see that as a bad thing. A lot of people do, but I think you should be in a constant state of improvement. Is like I used to be the guy that tiptoed around everything. It's like I was the one who questioned literally everything, but still catering to my own beliefs. It's and I didn't get anywhere because of that. I didn't go full force on anything, right? I mean, the people that are listening to this, the people that are curious about the whole self-improvement thing and do have some form of a growth mindset, and they embody fully who they are, they're going to be going, like, they may not be going in a straight direction, but they're going to be going in a good direction, like in a forward direction rather than a backward direction, and they're going to bust through walls full force, right? Because you're going to be like embodying things fully to a point where you are moving forward at like an incredible pace, but then you're going to fucking smack your face against the wall, and then you're going to move forward in a better direction. You're going to make more calculated decisions, and then that's kind of the evolution of everything, is you keep smacking your face against this wall, either climbing over it or busting through it with a new, better calculated direction, and you're going to do it again, and then you're going to do it again, and then you're going to do it again, and at the end of it you're heading in a pretty straight direction, or at least a better direction. And we could turn this into a huge metaphor, but your quality of life is better because of this, because you are constantly iterating according to feedback and your failures. And through that, I really do think it's impossible to fail, because that's what one thing that a lot of people say is like consistency is key. And it is. Consistency is very much key. But as Einstein says, you can't just do the same thing over and over again expecting the same results. So it's both consistency and persistence and iteration. And I think iteration is the biggest thing there. Like, you have to be willing to change what is not working after you've been consistent and persistent, and understand, like, okay, yes, this is definitely not working. This is not a result of lack of consistency. This is a result of consistency, and it's time to pivot. It's time to change direction. It's time to try a new iteration and see how it works, right? One big example, and I wasn't able to articulate this in an older ebook that I wrote. It's like, if you start a freelancing business, and let's say web design, because I'm experienced in that, and you understand, like, I can't sustain my clients right now. Like, I can't sustain this. I've been consistent. I've gotten to the point where I'm landing clients. I understand how to get clients, but it's just difficult. Like, one, I'm a commodity. I don't have, like, I'm charging $500 per site and haven't been able to close anyone at a higher price. I'm making $1,500 a month. I can't quit my job or anything like that. And it's time to, once you've done that for enough and you're in that, like, unknowing phase where you have hit a wall. You have to become aware of that, and then you have to change and you have to iterate. And for me, in that case, it was understanding marketing better. It was understanding how to create a better offer with my skills, because and you have to be aware of everything. You have to continuously be curious and doing research on this stuff, because with like web design especially, it's like everyone knows that they can go out and build a website on their own, and that they're only willing to pay a specific amount. And of course, you could go after people with a lot of money, but I was going after local businesses. And so it's like, okay, what do I do now? I niche down a bit. I need to understand exactly how they're getting clients, and I need to craft an offer around that, because a website, a good website may get them a few more clients, right? But it's not really tangible. It's like, yeah, you can get a good looking website. So it's like, what's actually going to get them more websites? I mean, clients. And to me, that was through studying other agencies that were doing better. I think that's a point in itself, is to like have some form of aspirational archetype regarding business or who you are, fitness, mind, spirit, people that you can refer to when it's time to bust through those stalls. And I figured out, like, for a local service-based business, something like a landing page, like a landing page with good copy and some form of a lead magnet and a way to schedule a call so they can close them, and then some emails on the back end to follow up with them and close them even more. And this works for really any service-based business. That offer and how I can market it is much, much, much easier, and I can charge more for it because they don't know how to do that. It's such like a niche combination of skills. It's like I have to understand good copy. I have to understand how to build a beautiful landing page. I have to understand how to write a sequence of emails that actually gets people on a call. I have to understand that niche's specific um, client acquisition process so I can implement that swiftly. But the thing that gets the what we come back to there is the whole experience thing. You can only go full force on what you have experience in right now. So I had to go full force on creating websites, even though I was a commodity. I had to hit that wall before I could understand that there was more. And okay, here's what I have to research now, because you're completely unaware of that. Like, it's very hard to start out with an extremely killer offer with a combination of different skills. To do that, it's really difficult. And that applies to all different areas of life in many ways.
Absolutely. I love that, man. You're right. And I think that, like you said, you can keep knocking at the door, you can keep producing more, you can keep doing these things and being ruthlessly consistent. But if that ruthless consistency is not taking you anywhere, like you said, consistency is not the problem. It's maybe time to change the lens, right? And I think Alex Hormozy said this, which is a very profound quote. He's like, people live the same year 20 times, right? And this goes for anything, right? You want to live, 1 year or 20 years, every year's got to be different, right? You want every year to be different. It's the same principle that applies to things that are not working, right? Like within your fitness, you want to try new things when things aren't working. The same with your business. If things aren't working, you need to go to that next level, fail, and find out, okay, that didn't work, and then try the new thing. Hire a coach, do some kind of course, right? Do something that changes the way that you look at things, not just consistency. And sometimes for people, if you're busy, it's taking a rest, man. The amount of times I've solved problems by walking, right, in nature, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm out on a walk, it's supposed to be my day off, not doing anything to do with business, and I've solved the problem. I've come up with a great idea, because again, you need to change this perspective a lot of time. That will change your routine. And again, it goes back to that kind of focus, energy, experience, right? You're going to focus on the next different thing. That's going to give you energy to then do the next thing, and that gives you a different experience, right? Or the experience that you want. So it all kind of ties back to that in a sense.
Yes, sir. That's
Epic,
my
man.
point with it.
Yeah, man. Epic. So Dan, this was awesome, man. One of my favorite podcasts. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. This was great. So for the audience, where can they find you, man?
I'm either just the Danco, TheDankoe on most socials, most normal socials. And then if you search Modern Mastery on like a podcast platform or YouTube or socials, you can find that there. That's like my overarching brand. But aside from that, that's really it.
Epic, man. That was great. We're going to have to try and do a meetup soon when I come to the States or you come to Europe, and go gym, bit of degeneracy, bit of self-improvement. I'm down for that.
Yes, sir. I'm all down
Yeah.
for that, man.
Epic, epic. Well, thank you very much for listening, guys. If you did enjoy it, of course, follow Dan, check him out, and give this podcast a 5-star rating, subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.